The wind howled across the Wyoming plains, kicking up dust that stung Clara's eyes as she stumbled toward the ranch house. Her whispered words barely reached the rancher, Tom Haskell, who knelt beside her, his calloused hand steadying her trembling frame. "Hurts, down there too," she murmured, her voice breaking like brittle glass. Tom's weathered face froze, his eyes narrowing as he pulled back the torn fabric of her skirt. What he saw made his blood run cold, a secret hidden in the folds of cloth, a truth that could unravel everything. The night was young, but the shadows held a story that refused to stay buried. If you're gripped by this tale already, hit that like button and subscribe for more heart-pounding Western stories. Share your thoughts in the comments, let's unravel this mystery together. Don't forget to ring the bell for weekly dives into suspense and grit. Clara wasn't supposed to be here. Not on Tom Haskell's land, not in the dead of night, and certainly not with blood seeping through her dress, her face pale as the moon overhead. The Haskell Ranch sprawled across 1,000 acres of rugged Wyoming, a place where secrets were buried under sagebrush and silence was law. Tom, a man of 40 with a jaw carved from granite, had seen his share of trouble, rustlers, drought, even a wolf that took half his herd one brutal winter. But nothing prepared him for Clara stumbling out of the darkness, her eyes white with fear and something else, shame, maybe, or defiance. He'd found her near the creek, where the cottonwoods whispered secrets to the stars. She was half-conscious, her breath shallow, her hands clutching at her belly like she could hold herself together. "Clara, what happened?" Tom's voice was low, urgent, as he eased her onto the porch of his weathered ranch house. The lantern flickered, casting shadows that danced like specters across her face. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat, replaced by a wince as she shifted. That's when she whispered it, those words that hit Tom like a bullet, "Hurts, down there too." He hesitated, his hands hovering over her torn skirt. Decency told him to look away, but instinct screamed something was wrong, terribly wrong. He peeled back the fabric, slow and careful, and his breath hitched. A dark stain spread across her undergarments, not just blood but something thicker, unnatural. And there, pressed against her thigh, was a small, leather-bound journal, its edges frayed, its pages bulging with secrets. Tom's gut twisted. This wasn't just an injury. This was a story, one Clara was running from or toward. "Who did this to you?" he asked, his voice rough as the gravel under his boots. Clara's eyes darted to the horizon, where the plains stretched endless and unforgiving. "Tll come for me," she whispered. "They always Donnerstag." Tom's jaw tightened. He didn't know who they were, but he'd be damned if Tite cross his land to get her. He carried her in sight, the floorboards creaking under his weight, and laid her on the cot by the fire. The journal slipped to the floor, and he let it lie there, its presence like a coiled rattler waiting to strike. Tom wasn't a man to pry. He'd built his life on minding his own business, keeping his head down through wars and feuds that tore other families apart. But Clara wasn't just any stranger. She was the daughter of Amos Reed, the cattle baron whose empire cast a shadow over half the county. Amos was a man of wealth and wrath, his name whispered in saloons with equal parts fear and scorn. Clara had run away 2 years ago, or so the rumors went, after a scandal no one dared speak out. Some said she'd shamed her family, others swore she'd been betrayed. Either way, she'd vanished until tonight. As Tom cleaned her wounds with whiskey and a rag, Clara's story came in fragments, each word a shard of glass. She'd been hiding in a mining town up north, working as a seamstress under a false name. But someone had found her, someone who knew her past, who wanted something she carried. "The journal," she said, her voice barely audible over the crackling fire. "It's all in there. Everything they don't want known." Tom glanced at the book on the floor, its leather cover glinting in the firelight. He didn't touch it, not yet. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters like a warning. Tom's dog, a grizzled mutt named Rusty, growled low, his ears pricked toward the darkness. Tom's hand drifted to the Colt revolver at his hip. "Stay put," he told Clara, stepping onto the porch. The night was thick, the kind that swallowed sound and hid trouble until it was too late. He scanned the horizon, his eyes catching a flicker of movement near the barn, a shadow that didn't belong. His grip tightened on the gun. Whoever was out there wasn't here for a friendly chat. He moved silently, years of tracking teaching him to blend with the night. The shadow shifted again, and now he saw it clear, a man, crouched low, his head pulled down to hide his face. Tom's heart thudded, not from fear but from the certainty of what came next. He raised the Colt, his voice cutting through the wind. "Step out, or I drop you where you stand." The figure froze, then straightened, hands raised. "Easy, Haskell," came a voice, smooth and oily, like it belonged in a saloon, not a ranch. "We just want the girl." "We?" Tom's eyes darted to the darkness, catching another shadow by the corral. 2 men, maybe more. His mind raced. Clara's words echoed, "TLL come for me." He didn't know who these men were, Amos Reed's hired guns, bounty hunters, or something worse, but he knew they weren't leaving without a fight. "She's under my protection," Tom said, his voice steady as iron. "You want her, you'll have to go through me." The man in the hat laughed, a sound that sent a chill down Tom's spine. "You don't know what you're protecting, Rancher. That girl's carrying a secret that'll burn this whole county to ash." He took a step forward, and the moonlight caught his face, scarred, wheat-haired, with eyes that gleamed like a coyote's. Tom recognized him, Silas Kane, a hired killer whose name was whispered in the same breath as death itself. Silas tipped his hat, mocking. "Last chance, Haskell. Hand her over, or we take her and you." Tom's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could fire, a scream tore through the night, Clara's voice, raw and desperate, from inside the house. Tom spun, his heart lurching. The shadows moved fast, too fast, and he realized his mistake. Silas wasn't alone, and the real threat wasn't out here, it was in sight. He bolted back to the house, the door hanging open like a wound. Clara was on the floor, scrambling away from a third man, his face hidden by a bandana. The journal was in his hand, and Clara's eyes were wild with panic. "No," she screamed, lunging for it, but the man shoved her back, hard. Tom didst hesitate. The Colt barked, and the man dropped, clutching his shoulder. The journal hit the floor, pages splaying open, revealing lines of hurried script and what looked like a map. Clara crawled toward it, her hand shaking, but Tom grabbed her, pulling her behind him. "Stay down," he growled, his eyes locked on the door. Silas and his men would be coming now, drawn by the gunshot. Sure enough, boots thudded outside, and Rusty's growls turned to frantic barks. Tom's mind raced. 3 men, maybe more, and him alone with a wounded girl and a secret he didn't understand. But he'd fought worse odds before, and he wasn't about to let Clara, or that journal, fall into the wrong hands. "Tell me what's in that book," he said, his voice low but urgent. Clara's eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw not just fear but fire. "It's the truth," she whispered. "About my father, about this land, about the blood it's built on." She swallowed hard, her hand clutching his arm. "If they get it, TLL kill us all." The night exploded into chaos. Silas's men stormed the porch, their guns blazing, and Tom fired back, each shot a thunderclap in the cramped house. Clara grabbed the journal, clutching it to her chest like a shield. Tom pushed her toward the back door, his mind racing. They needed to move, to hide, to survive until dawn. The creek, he thought. The cottonwoods could cover them, give them a chance to slip away. But as they stumbled into the night, Silas's voice cut through the gunfire, cold and certain. "You can't run from this, Haskell. Not from her, and not from what's coming." Tom's grip on Clara tightened as they ran, the journal a weight between them, its secrets pulling them deeper into a storm neither could escape. The plain stretched white, but the shadows were closing in, and Tom knew one thing for certain, this night was far from over. They reached the creek, the water glinting like a blade under the moon. Clara's breath came in ragged gasps, her strength fading, but she refused to let go of the journal. Tom crouched low, scanning the darkness for movement. The gunfire had stopped, but that didn't mean Silas and his men were gone. They were hunters, patient and ruthless, and Tom knew I'd track them until they had what they wanted. He glanced at Clara, her face pale but fierce, and made a decision. "We need to know what's in that book," he said, his voice barely above the gurgle of the creek. "If we're gonna die for it, I want to know why." Clara hesitated, her fingers tightening around the journal. Then, slowly, she opened it, the pages trembling in her hands. The firelight was gone, but the moon was enough to reveal the truth. The journal wasn't just a diary, it was a ledger, a record of deals and debts, of land stolen and lives broken. Amos Reed's name was scrawled across every page, tied to men with blood on their hands, men like Silas Kane. But there was more, a map, hand-drawn, marking a spot deep in the mountains, a place called Blackthorn Gulch. "It's a mine," Clara whispered. "My father's secret. He found something there, something worth killing for." Tom's mind raced. He'd heard whispers of Blackthorn Gulch, a place cursed by those who'd ventured too close. Some said it was gold, others swore it was something darker, something that drove men mad. Whatever it was, Amos Reed had built his empire on it, and Clara's journal held the proof that could bring him down, or get them both killed. "Why you?" Tom asked, his eyes searching hers. "Why carry this?" Clara's voice broke as she answered. "Because I was there," she said. 2 years ago, when it all started. I saw what he did, what he hid. I ran, but I couldn't let it go. This journal, it's my fight." Her eyes burned with a mix of grief and fury, and Tom understood. She wasn't just running from her father, she was running toward justice, or revenge, or maybe both. The snap of a twig broke the silence, and Tom's hand flew to his Colt. Silas was close, he could feel it, like a wolf circling its prey. "We move now," he whispered, pulling Clara to her feet. They followed the creek, keeping low, the journal tucked inside Clara's coat. The night was a maze of shadows, every rustle a threat. Tom's mind churned. Blackthorn Gulch was a day's ride, maybe less if they pushed hard. If they could reach it, they might find answers or a trap. But staying here wasn't an option. Silas wouldn't stop, and Amos Reed's reach was long. They moved through the cottonwoods, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and fear. Clara stumbled, her strength waning, and Tom caught her, his arm steady around her waist. "Keep going," he urged, though his own heart pounded with doubt. He wasn't a hero, just a rancher who'd wanted a quiet life. But quiet was gone now, replaced by a fight he hadn't chosen but couldn't walk away from. Dawn was breaking when they reached the edge of the plains, the mountains looming like sentinels in the distance. Tom's horse, tethered near the creek, snorted as they approached, sensing the tension. He helped Clara mount, her hands shaking as she gripped the saddle. The journal was still there, a silent passenger, its weight heavier than ever. "We head for the gulch," Tom said, his voice firm despite the uncertainty gnawing at him. "Whatever's there, we face it together." The ride was grueling, the sun climbing high as they pushed through scrubland and rocky trails. Clara's face was etched with pain, but she didn't complain, her eyes fixed on the horizon like it held her salvation or her doom. Tom kept watch, his Colt ready, every shadow a potential ambush. By midday, they reached a narrow pass, the entrance to Blackthorn Gulch. The air grew colder, the wind carrying a low moan that made Rusty whine at Tom's sight. "This is it," Clara said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "The truth is here." They dismounted, tying the horse to a gnarled tree. The gulch was a scar in the earth, its walls steep and jagged, the air heavy with the scent of iron and decay. Tom's gut told him to turn back, but Clara was already moving, the journal clutched tight. "There's a shaft," she said, pointing to a dark opening half hidden by boulders. "That's where it happened." Tom followed, his boots crunching on loose gravel, every step echoing like a warning. Inside the shaft, the darkness was suffocating, the air thick with damp and something metallic. Clara lit a match, its flicker revealing rough-hewn walls and a tunnel that stretched deeper than the light could reach. The journal's map was crude but clear, marking a chamber at the tunnel's end. They moved slowly, the silence broken only by their breathing and the distant drip of water. Tom's hand stayed on his Colt, his senses screaming that they weren't alone. They found the chamber, a cavern lit by a faint glow from above, where sunlight slipped through cracks in the rock. In the center was a pile of crates, their wood splintered, their contents spilt across the floor, chunks of ore that glinted not like gold but something stranger, darker, almost alive in the dim light. Clara knelt, her fingers tracing the journal's pages. "This is it," she whispered. "What he killed for. What he built his empire on." Before Tom could ask what she meant, a voice cut through the darkness, cold and familiar. "You should be stay gone, Clara." Silas Kane stepped into the light, his gun trained on them, his scarred face twisted with a grin. Behind him were two more men, their eyes gleaming with greed. "That journal's mine," Silas said, his voice dripping with menace. "And SOS Wartefers in those crates." Tom moved in front of Clara, his Colt raised, but Silas was faster. A shot rang out, grazing Tom's arm, and Clara screamed as one of Zila's men grabbed her, wrenching the journal from her hands. Tom lunged, tackling the man, his fist connecting with bone. The cavern erupted into chaos, gunfire, shoots, the clatter of falling rock. Clara fought like a wildcat, clawing at Silas, but he was too strong, pinning her against the wall. Tom's vision blurred with pain, but he did stop. He drove his shoulder into Silas, knocking him back, and grabbed the journal from the ground. "Run," he shouted to Clara, tossing her the book. She hesitated, her eyes locked on his, then bolted for the tunnel. Silas roared, firing wildly, but Tom was on him, their bodies crashing into the crates. The ore scattered, and in the chaos, Tom saw it, a faint shimmer, like the air itself was alive, pulsing with something unnatural. Clara's voice echoed from the tunnel. "Tom, now!" He broke free, sprinting after her, Silas's curses chasing them into the dark. They stumbled out of the shaft, gasping, the journal still in Clara's hands. The horse was gone, cut loose by Silas's men, but the plain stretched white, offering a chance to run. Tom's arm burnt, blood soaking his sleeve, but he pushed Clara forward. "Keep moving," he said, his voice hoarse. "We're not done yet." They ran until the gulch was a shadow behind them, the sun sinking low, painting the sky in blood and gold. Clara clutched the journal, her face set with a determination that made Tom's chest ache. "They won't stop," she said, her voice steady now. "Not until they have it or we destroy ET." Tom nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. Silas was out there, and Amos Reed's shadow loomed larger than ever. But Tom wasn't alone anymore, and neither was Clara. The truth in that journal was a weapon, one that could bring down an empire or bury them both. As the stars began to burn through the dusk, Tom made a silent vow, whatever came next, he'd see it through. For Clara, for the truth, and for the fight that had chosen him on a Wyoming night that refused to end.